There's a silent ache that many hearts carry in old age. The empty chair at the table, the untouched side of the bed, the quiet evenings where once there was laughter and shared memories. Some say love is for the young, that after a certain age, we are meant to simply remember, not begin again. But what if that isn't true? What if the author of your story hasn't finished writing? What if God still has a new chapter with pages full of tenderness, companionship, and sacred affection? For many, the idea of loving again brings more fear than hope. What will they think? Am I being foolish? Isn't it too late for that? These questions echo in the minds of those who have known deep love and deep loss. Yet, somewhere beneath the layers of silence and solitude, the heart still whispers, maybe love can look different now, slower, softer, more honest. Maybe it's not about fireworks, but about shared coffee in the morning. Not about grand declarations, but about holding hands during prayer. Maybe the kind of love that comes later is the kind that truly sees. And if you've ever felt that this part of life should be lived alone, out of duty or fear, I invite you to walk with me through a different story, one that does not end in loneliness, but begins again with courage. And if you've ever felt that this part of life should be lived alone, out of duty or fear, I invite you to walk with me through a different story, one that does not end in loneliness, but begins again with courage. If any part of this touched your heart, pause for a moment and click the like button, not just for this video, but for all those who still believe love can bloom no matter the season. Your engagement helps this message reach more hearts that need to hear it. And please, leave a comment below. Have you ever felt that longing? That quiet hope that love might still be possible? Or maybe you've already lived a second love story. Your words can inspire someone who feels alone right now. And if you're new here, I gently invite you to subscribe to Grace Wisdom Years. This space was made for souls like yours, mature, faithful, and still deeply alive. Together, we'll walk through stories that bring warmth, reflection, and peace to the later seasons of life. Now, let's talk about what happens when love knocks again, when you thought the door had already closed. There comes a moment in life when the silence feels heavier than it used to. Not the silence of peace or rest, but the kind that echoes through a house that used to be full. The kind that makes dinner feel like a task instead of a shared ritual. The kind that sits beside you on the couch where someone else once did. You look at yourself in the mirror, older and wiser, carrying stories in your eyes and time in your hands, and think that part of life must be over. Love had its season, and now it is time for other things, for memory, for acceptance, for solitude. But what if love never got the message that the door was closed? What if, when you weren't looking, love circled back a little slower, a little softer, but no less real? Maybe it came through a smile at the market, or a shared pew at church, or even through an old friend who suddenly began to feel new again. At first, you brush it off. It's just kindness, you tell yourself. Just nostalgia, just comfort. But then something stirs. Not loudly. Just a quiet question. Could it be? There's a strange beauty in the idea that love can knock when we've stopped expecting it. And it doesn't always knock the way it did when we were younger. It doesn't come dressed in grand gestures or urgency. Sometimes, it comes wrapped in a gentle presence, in the feeling that someone sees you, not the version of you that once was, but the person you are today, with your age, your experience, your stories, your grief. You start noticing things you hadn't in a while. You care about the way your hair looks again. You choose a nicer shirt for your walk in the park. You pause before sending a message, unsure but curious. These tiny movements of the heart, these tender hesitations, are the quiet signs that something in you is awakening, something you thought was asleep for good. And then come the fears. Not just the fear of being hurt, but the fear of being ridiculous. What will my children say? What will people at church think? Do I even remember how to love someone again? we're not just dealing with the possibility of love, but with the walls we've built to protect ourselves from it. Because love is not just about joy, it's about risk. And when you've lived long enough, you've learned what risk can cost. But here's the truth that often goes unspoken. There is no expiration date on being human. There is no point in life when the need for connection, affection, and companionship simply disappears. We were created for relationships, and that need doesn't vanish with age. It only changes its shape. It becomes quieter, more sacred, less about passion, more about presence, less about romance, more about peace. Sometimes, love returns not with fireworks, but with the light of a single candle. It doesn't shout, it doesn't rush, it simply waits to be noticed. It waits to be received. It waits for the heart to believe that it is still worthy of being chosen. And let's be honest, choosing to love again isn't just about finding someone new. It's about finding the courage to open the door of your heart, even if your hands still tremble from the last time you did. It's about allowing healing to meet the longing, about letting go of the idea that certain things are only for the young. Because love, real love, is not about youth. It's about presence. It's about faith. It's about two souls saying, "I see you," in a world that so often looks away. You may not be looking for a fairy tale. Maybe all you want is someone to sit with during the quiet. Someone who understands your stories without needing you to explain. Someone who listens without fixing. Someone who doesn't complete you, but complements your faith, your walk, your days. And if love does knock again, even if it feels unfamiliar, even if it comes when you least expect it, maybe, just maybe, it's not too late to open the door. Maybe it's right on time. If this spoke to you in some way, let it settle in your heart. And if you feel comfortable, share with us in the comments a word that represents what love means to you today. It could be peace, companionship, hope, or even second chance. Your voice matters, and your story may be the light someone else needs to believe again. There's a kind of silence that only comes after love has left. It's not the peaceful quiet you feel at the end of a long day, or the hush that settles after prayer. It's a heavier stillness, one that lingers in the corners of the house and in the rhythm of your everyday. It's the sound of a cup being placed on the table without a second one beside it. It's hearing your own footsteps echo just a little louder than they used to. It's reaching out in the night, half asleep, forgetting, for a moment, that no one is there. Loss doesn't always arrive with noise. Sometimes it enters on tiptoe, after months of slow decline, or in the blink of a moment that changes everything. And when it comes, it doesn't just take someone away, it rearranges the world. What once made sense no longer does. Even the calendar feels unfamiliar. Birthdays, anniversaries, Sunday services. They pass differently now, but within that silence, something strange begins to happen. Not quickly, not dramatically, but gently, like the way light begins to shift before dawn. It's not that the ache disappears, it stays. But alongside it, a different kind of presence begins to stir. A whisper, not outside of you, but within. A soft pull toward the garden again. A curiosity about the lives around you. A smile that slips out before you even realize it. It's as if the soul, though wounded, starts searching again, not for replacement, but for renewal. Sometimes we mistake this whisper for guilt. How can I think of anything new when I've lost so much? But God does not call us to forget. He calls us to live. The pain of losing someone doesn't mean our capacity to love has died too. In fact, it may mean our love has deepened, grown roots through sorrow, stretched beyond the visible, and prepared the heart to receive differently. The world doesn't often talk about love after grief. It's easier to speak of moving on, of healing, of closure. But what if God's plan isn't to close something, but to open something? What if the loss carved space for something more sacred, not as a replacement, but as a continuation of the love you once knew? You may find yourself surprised by what moves you. A poem, a touch on the shoulder, A hymn that stirs tears you thought had dried. That is not weakness. That is the soul remembering it is still alive. And where there is life, there is always the possibility of beginning again. Some will say it's not appropriate, that you had your time, that love now is a distraction, or even a betrayal. But love is not limited by the opinions of others. Love is not disrespectful to the past when it is rooted in gratitude and reverence. It's possible to honor what was and still open your hands to what might be. God's love is not a one-time offering. His mercies are new each morning, and sometimes those mercies come in the form of companionship, laughter, or the simple relief of not walking alone. And no one can define what that new beginning should look like for you. For some, it may be a new relationship. For others, it may be a deep friendship that blossoms into something unexpected. For others still, it may be simply allowing someone in again, without knowing where the path will lead. Whatever it looks like, it begins the same way, with the courage to listen to that whisper in the quiet, and not to push it away this time. Because the whisper might just be the gentle voice of God, reminding you that He is still doing a new thing in your life, that He has not forgotten you, that even in the silence, He is sowing seeds, and in His perfect time, something beautiful will bloom again. Sometimes, all it takes is one story to break the wall we've built around our hearts. Not a story from a movie or from some far-off land, but from people like you, real people with real wrinkles, real regrets, and real courage. People who believed their time for love had passed, only to find themselves surprised by grace in the second act of life. There's Maria, a widow for nearly 2 decades, who spent her mornings tending to plants and memories. She wasn't looking for anything, not after burying the only man she had ever loved. But then, on an ordinary Thursday, during Bible study, a kind man named Enrique offered to walk her home. He didn't say much. He just carried her heavy bag and made sure she crossed the street safely. That was all. And yet, something shifted. Over the months, they kept walking, talking, laughing, praying. She didn't fall in love the way she did when she was 20. She rose into it, slowly, like the dawn. Today, they share evening devotionals and hold hands as if it were the most sacred act of the day. Or take Paulo, 73, whose wife passed after 51 years of marriage. His world collapsed. For 2 years, he spoke to no one unless necessary. He ate out of habit, walked out of restlessness, and prayed out of habit more than hope. But one day, in line at the pharmacy, a woman dropped her cane. He picked it up. She smiled. They talked for a moment. Her name was Helen. He thought it was just a passing encounter. But life, it seems, had other plans. Over time, they began meeting, not by arrangement, but by divine coincidence. Today, they meet every Sunday after service, drink coffee under the jacaranda tree, and share stories of their grandchildren. No rush, no expectations, just a gentle rediscovery of joy. These aren't fairy tales. These are testimonies, not of perfect love, but of healing love, redeemed love. The kind of love that knows grief intimately, yet still dares to open its hands again. These are lives that prove something most people forget, that love, real love, isn't bound by youth or timelines. It is bound by the heart's ability to recognize God's fingerprints in a new beginning. And maybe the reason these stories move us so deeply is because they reflect something we all long for. Not the romance of old movies, but the companionship that makes silence easier to bear. The kind of presence that sees you just as you are, with your history, your wisdom, your spiritual journey, and your wounds. A kind of love that doesn't need fixing, but simply needs to be received. You see, God's calendar is not like ours. Where we draw lines, He draws circles. Where we say the end, He says, watch what I can still do. And sometimes, His grace shows up not in grand miracles, but in small encounters that slowly knit the heart back together. So many people believe the narrative that love is only for the young, that once we reach a certain age, Our hearts are meant only for memories. But the truth is, the heart doesn't know age. It only knows longing, connection, and the quiet hope that we might not have to finish this journey alone. And there's power in hearing these stories. They awaken something that was once asleep. They challenge the idea that your best years are behind you. They give permission to dream again, even if the dreams now come softly and with prayer. Because love that comes late in life has its own rhythm. It's not flashy, it's not loud, but it's deep, rooted, and honest. It's the kind of love that holds your hand during a doctor's visit, that brings soup when you're sick, that remembers how you take your tea. And maybe, just maybe, it's the kind of love we were always meant to grow into. So if you've ever looked at your life and thought, that chapter is closed, these stories offer another truth. Perhaps love is still possible, still holy, still waiting. Not to repeat the past, but to build something new with everything you've lived and learned. There is a quiet misunderstanding that lingers in the hearts of many older adults. One that whispers love in this season of life will never be as powerful as it was in youth. That it will be a pale version of what once was, just a memory's shadow. But that idea couldn't be farther from the truth. Because while young love burns brightly, love in old age glows with a warmth that doesn't flicker. It is not a wildfire, it is a steady flame, deeply rooted and surprisingly strong. Love that comes later is not less, it is different. And in many ways, it is deeper. It arrives without the pressure to impress, without the frantic rush to build a future, without the illusion that everything must be perfect to be real. It shows up with eyes that have seen sorrow, and hands that have known work, and hearts that have been broken and rebuilt. It is love that listens longer, speaks more gently, and holds space for silence. When you are young, love can feel like a chase. You run after it, afraid of missing your chance. But now, it is different. You do not chase. You notice, you receive. You rest in it. Love in old age has nothing to prove. It does not need the approval of others. It does not pretend. It does not try to be what it is not. It simply offers itself, fully, calmly, faithfully. And maybe that is the unexpected beauty of it, that after everything you have lived, everything you have endured, God can still place someone in your life who sees not only who you were, but who you are becoming. Someone who doesn't ask you to start over, but to begin again from where you are, with what you have, and with the time that remains. This kind of love doesn't promise forever, but it promises to be here now, present in the moment. It values shared routines over grand gestures, comfort over butterflies, sacred silence over endless chatter. It's the person who waits patiently while you find your glasses, who remembers your stories without correcting the details, who sits beside you in prayer and believes that love is not about youth, but about soul. There is something profoundly spiritual in being loved when the world thinks you are past your prime. It restores dignity. It reawakens beauty. It reminds the heart that being seen and chosen is not something you outgrow. That love, when it is real, does not care about how many birthdays you've had, but about how open your heart still is. And let's be honest, there is also a kind of relief in this stage of life. You are no longer chasing the fantasy. You are no longer burdened by the need to build a family or climb the social ladder. You are free to love simply because you want to, because companionship matters more now than chemistry. Because holding someone's hand while watching the rain can feel more intimate than anything you used to believe love was. Some people will never understand this kind of love. They will see it as fragile or temporary. But they do not know what it means to sit beside someone who has also known loss and still chooses joy. They do not understand the strength it takes to open your heart again after grief. They do not know the miracle of finding comfort in a glance, safety in a quiet room, hope in a gentle voice. The truth is, the love that comes in old age is not weaker, it is wiser. It is less about being completed and more about being understood, less about excitement and more about peace. It is the kind of love that prays with you before sleep, that brings you your slippers without asking, that walks beside you in silence and hears everything you are not saying. So if the world tells you love is a young person's game, let your life become the gentle contradiction. Let your heart show that love, when it is grounded in faith, compassion, and shared presence, can be more powerful at 70 than it ever was at 20. Let the unexpected become holy. Let the second bloom of love be the one that finally teaches you what it was meant to be all along. One of the quietest prisons we can live in is the fear of what others will think. And when it comes to finding love again in old age, this fear can become even louder. It often comes wrapped in politeness, in glances during church service, in family members' carefully chosen words that sound supportive but carry unspoken judgment. For many older adults, the question is not just whether they want to love again, but whether they are allowed to. There is a deeply rooted belief in our culture that aging should be dignified, and that love somehow doesn't fit into that picture. That we should be content with our memories, with our past, with our role as grandparents or widows. That wanting affection, companionship, or even romance again is somehow shameful or selfish. These ideas come quietly, sometimes from people we trust, sometimes from within ourselves. You may have heard it said, but you had your time, or isn't it too soon? Or even, what about the family? These words linger long after they are spoken. They make you second-guess your feelings. They make you wonder if opening your heart is an act of disloyalty or weakness. And perhaps the hardest voice to silence is the one in your own head, asking, "Am I being foolish?" But the truth is, love is not something we age out of. It is not a chapter that closes when we lose someone, or when we turn a certain number on a calendar. It is a part of who we are, woven into our design. Too long for love is not a flaw. It is a reflection of the God who made us for relationship. To desire connection, even in old age, is not immaturity. It is spiritual honesty. And let's not ignore the deeper layer. Many who find love again are not trying to replace what they had. They are simply responding to the emptiness that comes with living alone, to the quiet hunger for companionship. It is not about starting over. It is about continuing to live fully, faithfully, and with open hands. And that, by itself, is courageous. The fear of judgment is real. It comes with shame, guilt, and self-doubt. But when you look at your life through the eyes of faith, you begin to see something different. You begin to realize that what others think does not define what God is doing in your life. That love, when guided by prayer, peace, and discernment, is not a mistake. It is a gift. There will always be voices that misunderstand your journey. People who only see what they expect to see, not what God is quietly unfolding in their lives. But your story is not theirs to write. And the pages of your life are still being turned by the author who knows exactly what you need and when. Maybe you are not looking for approval. Maybe what you are really searching for is permission. Permission to hope. Permission to smile again. Permission to be seen not as a relic of the past, but as someone still capable of new beginnings. And here is the truth. You do not need permission to be human. You do not need permission to love. Your life belongs to the one who made it. Your heart belongs to the one who formed it. And if he is whispering to you that love is still part of your journey, then it is not too late, not too strange, and certainly not shameful. You are made for love at every stage, not just the beginning. So if your heart stirs when someone looks your way, if your soul feels warm at the thought of companionship again, do not silence it because of what others may think. Instead, listen closely. That may not be weakness. It may be the quiet sound of God opening another door, waiting for you to walk through with faith and courage. Some people believe love is found by chance, but those who walk with God know better. For them, love is not a random event. It is a divine appointment. A moment prepared long before we ever imagined it. And when it comes in the later years of life, it often arrives not in grand declarations, but in quiet evidence that God is still writing your story. There is a sacred tenderness to love that blossoms after loss, after years of solitude, after decades of walking with God through valleys and mountaintops. It is not hurried, it is not loud. It is a kind of love that has passed through fire, through time, through seasons of grief and healing, and emerged gentle but unshaken. It is the kind of love that begins with prayer, with discernment, with a soft yes whispered through fear and faith. When we are younger, we often chase love, hoping it will give us identity, belonging, and meaning. But in old age, something shifts. We no longer seek to be completed. We seek to be understood. To walk beside someone who honors our journey, who respects our faith, who does not rush us or change us, but walks with us toward the same eternal horizon. This is where faith and love intertwine. Because when you have walked with God long enough, you begin to see His fingerprints, not just in the miracles, but in the ordinary. In the person who sits beside you at church every week. In the phone call that arrives when you most need it to talk. In the friend who remembers your story and listens without judgment. In the simple companionship that begins to feel like home. Some people might ask, how can I know this is from God? The answer is rarely written in the clouds. It comes in peace, in alignment with His word, in the fruit it produces in your heart. God does not bring confusion, pressure, or fear. He brings clarity, rest, and joy that quietly builds, even if the world does not understand. Perhaps the reason some hesitate to love again is because they think it means forgetting the past. But God is a God of memory and restoration. He does not ask you to let go of your history. He asks you to trust Him with your future. And sometimes, His grace is so extravagant that He allows you to taste love again. Not because you asked, but because He sees your loneliness. He hears your late-night prayers. He knows the ache you carry beneath your smiles. And in His perfect timing, He writes a new chapter, one you did not expect, but one that fits your heart in this season of life. This new chapter may not look like the first. It may be quieter, it may be slower, but it is no less sacred. It may involve two people who already know what loss feels like, who no longer try to change one another, but who instead hold space for each other's pain and joy, who pray together, who walk through daily life hand in hand, not rushing toward anything, but simply being present, grateful, and full of grace. Faith makes love in old age not only possible, but beautiful, because it is rooted not in fantasy, but in trust, in surrender, in the deep awareness that time is precious, and that hearts are fragile, and that the greatest act of courage is still to love again, even after life has broken you. So if God is stirring something new in your heart, if you feel the pull toward someone, or even just the idea of companionship, do not dismiss it. Bring it to Him. Speak it in prayer, ask for wisdom, and then pay attention to the gentle ways He responds. Through peace, through confirmation, through doors that open quietly, without force. Because the same God who blessed your past can also bless your future. The same God who held you through grief can now guide you toward joy. The same God who once said, "It is not good for man to be alone," has not changed His heart for you. He still cares about your heart, your companionship, your quiet longings that you may not have voiced to anyone but Him. Love is not a detour from your spiritual walk. It can be a continuation of it, a gift to remind you that even now, even here, God still writes love stories. And sometimes, the most meaningful ones begin when we least expect them. There comes a moment in life when we begin to understand what truly matters. Not the grand romances we once imagined, not the fireworks or fairy tales, but the quiet presence of someone who simply stays. As we age, our understanding of love deepens, softens, and begins to reflect something more eternal. It is no longer about being swept off our feet. It is about being grounded, held, and seen. Companionship becomes the heart's deepest longing. In our younger years, we often searched for the perfect partner. The one who would meet every need, finish every sentence, fill every space. But now, we begin to see that what we truly need is not perfection, but presence. Not someone who makes us feel young again, but someone who honors the years we have lived. Someone who sees the beauty in our lines and the stories behind our scars. Someone who chooses us, not in spite of our age, but because of everything that comes with it. The pressure to be flawless fades. There is no longer the need to impress, to hide our weaknesses, to pretend we have more energy than we do. Instead, we begin to cherish the honesty that comes with age. The laughter over shared forgetfulness. The quiet understanding when words fall short. The comfort of someone who knows when to talk and when to sit silently beside us. Companionship is sacred. It is not flashy. It is not always romantic in the traditional sense. It is spiritual. It is emotional. It is practical. It is someone who reminds you to take your medicine. Someone who remembers which hymns make you cry. Someone who brings you tea without being asked. It is someone who chooses to be there, not because they have to, but because your presence makes their day gentler, fuller, more meaningful. In this season of life, we are no longer building castles in the air. We are tending gardens of the heart. And the people who join us in this season do not need to be extraordinary. They need to be kind, faithful, patient, gentle. People who know how to live in the moment and honor the past without being trapped by it. People who understand that love now is not about drama, but about devotion. God never said we needed perfect people to walk with. He simply invites us to walk together, bearing with one another in love, in grace, in truth. And when we begin to see love through that lens, something inside us begins to relax. We stop striving. We start receiving. We let go of expectations that were never ours to carry, and we begin to notice the beauty of simply doing life with someone who makes the ordinary feel holy. Companionship means waking up and knowing someone is glad you are still here. It means hearing a voice that greets you with tenderness, even when your body aches and your energy is low. It means having someone to share small joys with, like a blooming flower in the garden, a favorite old song, a quiet walk at sunset. It means living your days with the steady reassurance that you are not alone. And for those who wonder whether it is too late, whether anyone would want to walk beside them now, remember this: you are not invisible. You are not forgotten. The desire for connection was placed in you by the one who walks with you daily. And if that desire still beats within your chest, it is because there is still room for it in your story. Companionship in old age is not settling. It is sacred. It is holy ground. It is two souls, shaped by time and grace, saying yes to each other, not for the sake of romance, but for the joy of presence. And sometimes, that kind of love is the one that most clearly reflects the heart of God. Before love can enter again, something deeper must happen. The heart, once broken, does not automatically open itself to new beginnings. It guards, it remembers, it resists, and that resistance is not wrong. It is a sign that what was lost mattered, that the love once held was real. But it is also a sign that healing is still in progress, that something within is still learning how to feel safe again. For many who have loved deeply and lost painfully, the thought of trusting another person can feel impossible. It is not just about trusting someone new. It is about trusting yourself again, trusting your judgment, your emotions, your sense of timing. After all, you know what it feels like to love with your whole being. You know what it costs when that love is taken away, either by death, by distance, or by betrayal. Grief and disappointment leave invisible bruises. They linger in the way you flinch at kindness, in the way you smile politely but stay guarded, in the way you sometimes imagine possibilities and then immediately dismiss them. Healing does not always come in one moment. Sometimes it comes slowly, gently, like rain softening hard ground. Sometimes it comes when you are not trying to heal, but simply living day by day, and realizing the weight on your chest is a little lighter. God, in His mercy, often begins the healing in silence. In the quiet moments, when you cry and no one sees. In the prayers, whispered through tears. In the long walks, where your thoughts finally slow down, and He does not rush you. He does not scold you for being cautious. He simply walks with you, patiently, until you are ready to look up again, to notice again, to feel again. Trust is not the absence of fear. It is the courage to take one step forward, even when your heart still trembles. It is the decision to believe that not everyone will leave, not every story will end in loss, not every open door will lead to sorrow. It is learning to listen again, not just to others, but to the quiet voice within that says, maybe it is safe now. And sometimes, the greatest healing happens not before love, but through it. When someone enters your life not to fix you, but to sit beside you while you mend. Someone who understands the pauses in your speech, the long silences, the tears that come without warning. Someone who does not ask you to be anything but yourself, exactly as you are today. Love after healing is not perfect. It is tender. It is honest. It is full of small moments where both people admit their fears and still choose each other. It is praying together when words fail. It is showing up even when emotions are messy. It is holding space for each other's memories and not feeling threatened by them. It is saying, I know you've been through pain, and I will not add to it. And you, who are listening now, you who have felt the weight of loss, know this. It is not weakness to want love again. It is not betrayal to imagine being held once more. It is not selfish to dream of companionship that heals and not harms. It is part of being human. It is part of being created in the image of a God who is love itself. Learning to trust again is part of learning to live again. And if God has brought someone into your path who stirs something soft within you, do not run away too quickly. Take your time, breathe, pray, be honest, let your heart speak. And if it is still too soon, that is okay too. Healing has no clock. But if your soul begins to stir, do not ignore it. That stirring might be the first sign of something sacred awakening. Because sometimes, the heart does not need to be convinced. It just needs to be reminded that love, when it is from God, does not rush, does not wound, does not confuse. It gently restores. It patiently waits. It holds your hand and says, we can do this together, one day at a time. In a world that measures everything by speed, urgency, and instant results, love in old age moves in the opposite direction. It does not rush. It does not demand answers or chase dramatic feelings. It blossoms slowly, quietly, like a flower opening at its own pace, unconcerned with the expectations around it. And in that slowness, there is something profoundly beautiful. You begin to notice details again. Not because you are trying to impress, but because presence becomes precious. A shared meal, a simple walk, a quiet conversation in the evening breeze. These moments matter more now, not because they are rare, but because they are real. There is no pressure to define anything too quickly. No need to figure it all out at once. There is just a gentle unfolding, a sacred pace that allows the heart to breathe. You do not need to be swept off your feet. You need someone to walk beside you, step by step, without needing to know what tomorrow holds. This kind of love honors the time it takes to feel safe again. It respects the hesitations, the questions, the moments of silence. It does not fill those silences with noise. It simply stays. And by staying, it says more than words ever could. Loving without hurry means there is room for listening, not just to each other, but to God. It gives space for prayer, for reflection, for discernment. You begin to see that the pauses between the moments are not empty. They are full of meaning. They are where trust is built, where souls begin to understand each other without needing to explain. There is something sacred about being loved slowly, when someone is not trying to win you, but to know you. When they are not pushing for answers, but gently holding space for your truth. When they do not demand your heart, but quietly receive whatever it is ready to offer that day. This pace may feel unfamiliar at first, especially if you remember a love that once came with intensity and passion. But now, something deeper is calling. Not fire, but warmth. Not urgency, but presence. Not excitement, but peace. It is a different kind of love, one that does not shout from rooftops, but whispers through shared tea, folded hands in prayer, and soft glances that say, I am here, and I am not going anywhere. And it is in this slowness that love becomes durable. It is not built on fleeting emotions, but on mutual respect, shared values, and a quiet tenderness that grows stronger with time. It understands that every person carries a history, and it does not try to erase it. It simply says, I will walk with you through whatever comes next. There is no need to compare this kind of love with what came before. It is not better or worse. It is just different. It is shaped by the years, softened by losses, and deepened by faith. It does not need promises of forever. It finds joy in the now, in the simple miracle of being seen, known, and loved without hurry. Some may not understand why you are not rushing, why you are not making declarations or decisions. But your soul knows what it needs, and if what it needs is space to breathe, time to grow, and the grace to take one step at a time, that is enough. You are not late. You are not behind. You are right where you need to be, trusting the slow work of love. Because when love is not rushed, it becomes a home, not a place to escape from loneliness, but a place to rest your heart in peace. And sometimes, it is in the waiting, in the gentle unfolding, that we discover the kind of love we did not even know we were praying for. Somewhere along the path of aging, many begin to believe the story is nearly over, not just physically, but emotionally. There is this quiet idea that the heart has already felt everything it was meant to feel, that love has already come and gone, that now is the time for remembering, not for receiving. But that is not the voice of God. That is the voice of fear. Because the truth is, as long as you are breathing, your heart is still capable of growing, of giving, and of loving again. You are not done. Your story is not closed. And the desires that remain in you, the ones you sometimes try to silence or dismiss, were placed there for a reason. The longing to be seen, the hope to be held again, the dream of sharing life's simple moments with someone who truly understands, those are not signs of weakness. They are signs of life. It takes immense courage to open the heart again, especially when that heart carries loss, carries stories, carries the memory of what was and the pain of what ended. It takes bravery to let someone in after you have spent years learning how to live alone. It takes faith to believe that God is still writing new pages in a heart that has already known both joy and sorrow. But courage is not about being fearless. It is about being willing, willing to try, willing to listen, willing to hope, and sometimes willing to take a small step towards someone who makes you feel seen again, someone whose presence softens the edges of your day, someone who does not ask you to be more than you are, but quietly reminds you that who you are now is enough. Love in old age is not about reliving what once was. It is about honoring what remains. It is about discovering that there is still beauty in shared meals, in morning prayers, in quiet walks, in knowing glances. It is about finding someone who helps you carry the weight of time, not by fixing anything, but simply by walking beside you. You are allowed to want that. You are allowed to desire connection. You are allowed to imagine waking up and hearing a voice that says good morning. You are allowed to picture yourself laughing again, not from memory, but from something unfolding in the present. And if the world tries to tell you otherwise, remember that the world does not know what God has planned for you. His timing is not limited by age. His blessings are not bound by human calendars. He does not withhold love simply because too many years have passed. In fact, sometimes, it is in the later seasons of life that his most tender gifts arrive. Maybe you have been waiting. Maybe you have been afraid. Maybe you have been telling yourself that you are content enough. But deep down, if something in you still stirs when you see two people holding hands, if something within still softens at the sound of shared laughter, then your heart has not stopped hoping. That hope is holy. It is not naive. It is not silly. It is sacred, because it means your heart is still open, still alive, still willing to receive. And God can do beautiful things with a heart that remains open. So if someone enters your life, and your spirit feels a quiet peace in their presence, do not rush, but do not hide. If you feel drawn to someone's kindness, to their voice, to their way of simply being with you, let yourself lean in. You do not have to make promises. You do not have to know what will happen. You just have to be present, honest, receptive. Love at this stage is not about fireworks. It is about faith. It is not about filling a void. It is about sharing what already overflows in you. Compassion, wisdom, peace, prayer, kindness. It is about offering your heart, not as a question, but as a gift. You are not done, and the person you are today is not too late. You are right on time. And if your heart is ready, even a little, even cautiously, even with trembling hands, then let it open. Because love still knows your name. And God still delights in bringing people together, not just at the beginning of life, but even in the beautiful, sacred quiet of the years that remain. So maybe love looks different now. Maybe it comes without loud promises, without long futures to build, without the urgency of youth. But maybe, just maybe, that makes it even more meaningful, because love, when it is slow, when it is deliberate, when it is chosen after loss, after healing, after deep prayer, becomes something sacred. Not a spark, but a flame. Not noise, but warmth. Not a new beginning that forgets the past, but one that honors it and walks gently forward. If you have loved and lost, you carry something holy in you. If you have longed and waited, you carry hope. And if, even now, you find yourself wondering if it is still possible to love again, then your heart is still alive. And where there is life, there is always something new God can do. Do not let the world silence your longing. Do not let shame or fear close the door. And do not believe the lie that your time has passed. The same God who gave you breath today can still surprise you tomorrow. The same God who walked with you through every valley can still bring joy in the evening, even in old age. Love can bloom, not as a replacement, not as an escape, but as a reminder that your story is still being written, and that your heart was made, from the beginning, for love. If this message reached a quiet part of your soul, I invite you to leave a word in the comments that reflects how you feel. Perhaps it is ready, or still hoping, or simply trusting. Your words might encourage someone else who needs to see that love, even now, is possible. And if you have not yet subscribed to Grace Wisdom Years, this is your space, a place where we honor the beauty of aging, the power of faith, and the stories still unfolding in the later seasons of life. Click subscribe, and let's walk this sacred journey together. You are not forgotten, you are not finished, and yes, you can love again. With peace, with faith, and with open hands. Let us keep walking, let us keep believing, let us keep loving. If you made it to this point, it means something in this message touched you. Maybe it stirred a memory, a longing, or even a quiet hope you had buried for a long time. And if that happened, this space is for you. I want to invite you to subscribe to Grace Wisdom Years. Here, we honor your journey. We speak to the heart. We believe that even now, God is still writing beautiful things in your life. So if you felt something today, do not leave without joining us. Click subscribe and stay close. You belong here. And if this message spoke to you deeply, write in the comments, I receive. Just those 2 words. They carry faith. They carry openness. And they declare to yourself, and maybe even to someone else, that your heart is still alive and ready. Leave a like, too. It helps this video reach others who are quietly waiting for a word like this. Your one small click can bring peace to another soul. And if you want to keep walking with us, the next video is right here on the screen. Let it bless you. Let it remind you again, you are not alone, and the story is not over. Watch it now.